1990, Vauxhall was on top of the world. Ford's serious misstep with the Sierra in the early 1980s meant Vauxhall's well put together Cavalier had cleaned up. The third generation Cavalier had continued those inroads in the late 1980s, along with the excellent Astra and Nova that completed their mass car lineup. So surely the next generation car, the Vectra, would do just as well. I'm sure you can tell from the build-up that that didn't happen, but why? This is the Vauxhall, Opel, Holden, Chevrolet Vectra story. Vauxhall got a shock when the Ford Mondeo launched in 1992. The unloved Sierra was dead, replaced by a car that was hoovering up the awards. The replacement for the Cavalier would have a much harder fight for the hearts and minds of European families. But where the Mondeo was a completely new world car platform, the Cavalier replacement would borrow the platform from the previous car. It would get a new shape though, with a class-leading 0.28 drag factor and more gizmos to help it compete. The engines got more power and overall was 5% more fuel efficient. The Cavalier was a rebadge of the successful and long-running Opel Ascona. The Ascona had got a name change in the late 1980s to the Vectra, while Vauxhall kept the Cavalier name, but by the mid-90s, parent General Motors wanted to consolidate their car names in Europe, so the Opel Kadett would become the Astra, the Vauxhall Nova became the Corsa, and the Vauxhall Cavalier would become the Vauxhall Vectra. The new car launched at the Frankfurt Motor Show in the autumn of 1995, alongside new competitors like the Peugeot 406 and the Volvo S40. But in the UK, those cars were also Rans. Vauxhall knew that their main competition was the Ford Mondeo. They boasted of their new car's handling, including new front and rear suspension, but early reviews weren't good. Journalists found the handling wanting compared to the Mondeo, bland almost. It was also heavier, a massive 188 kilos more than the old car and 45 kilos heavier than the Mondeo, the weight of a baby hippo. There were good reasons for this though. There were more safety features such as better front and side impact structures to meet stricter rules, a detachable pedal box to prevent leg injuries, and improved airbags. Then there were all the new luxury features, all to keep up with and hopefully surpass the competition. But weight kills car sales, just ask Ford. The new Escort in 1990 got savaged by the press. Its weight meant it was slower, less agile, and had worse fuel economy than the outgoing car. Why buy the new model? It was worse. Ford quickly learnt their lesson. They'd fixed the Escort, and the Mondeo was a joy to drive. But clearly, Vauxhall hadn't been paying attention. The Vectra's tagline was "designed for the next millennium." Shame it hadn't been designed for 1995 when it launched. The evolution of the Cavalier to the Vectra couldn't match the revolution Ford had achieved with the Mondeo. Inside, things were well laid out, clear and simple like the last car, but there was the occasional problem like the armrest getting in the way of gear changes and the steering wheel, which some drivers just couldn't get in the right position. A little surprisingly for 1995, the standard equipment was only a radio cassette player. Even customers buying the upmarket Vectra CD didn't get a compact disc player as standard. Vauxhall instead focused on the Karin SatNav upgrade from Philips that ironically used a compact disc for the map data. The worst and most memorable Vectra review came from the popular BBC car programme Top Gear. Jeremy Clarkson, growing into his role as a motoring journalist, decided on an audacious review, if you could call it that, because he spent his time trying not to review it, saying it wasn't worth it as it was such a terrible car. After Vauxhall's big marketing campaign, the sad fact was all Brits could talk about was Clarkson's review. With many of them being fleet customers that had a choice between a Mondeo and a Vectra, that wasn't good news for the Vectra. The previous car had been produced in Brazil as the Chevrolet Vectra, and the updated model began production there in 1996. The launch was promoted by making it the medical and safety car for the new Brazilian IndyCar race. Vauxhall also launched the Vectra Estate in 1996. If reviewers hated how the saloon and hatchback drove, then they were hardly going to like it as a cargo carrier. At least the running costs were reasonable, and as used models came on the market, they were a good deal, but it was no consolation to Vauxhall. The Cavalier had been well received, and the Vectra needed some of that much-needed interest. The new car would take part in various touring car championships across the globe to drum up interest. It got close to winning, but didn't get to the top step. Those motorsports fans would soon get a sporty, road-going Vectra, the SRI V6 in 1997, with a 2.5-litre 200 horsepower engine. That engine made it fast, but as Mazda MX-5 owners will tell you, speed is only part of the story, and the Vectra's gearbox, steering and handling let down the whole package. Back to square one. Many years before the Vectra launched, General Motors had decided to share the platform with its other brands. The Vectra, well, the Opel Vectra, had first appeared in the late 1980s and had already been used for the Vauxhall Opel Holden Calibra and was heavily reworked as the new Saab 900 in 1994. It was used for the larger Saab 9.5 in 1997 and the American Saturn L series in 1999. Vectra production would expand as well to Egypt in 1998 and Australia, where it was sold as the Holden Vectra to unsuspecting Aussies. On the continent, Opel launched a 3-litre V6 version uprated to 220 horsepower. The larger engine would at least give the car the right performance stats with a sub-7 second 0-60 time. Cars have a regular update cycle, so the plan for the first 4 years after launch was expanding the range with estates and faster models. But Vauxhall and Opel were very aware of reviewers' feedback, so they addressed the worst problems with the car with the 1999 update. The look changed a bit as well, with something Vauxhall called a more premium upmarket look. I'll let you decide if they succeeded, or even if you noticed. Vauxhall claimed 2,500 changes were made to the new car, and chief among them was work to improve the ride and handling using changes such as stiffer anti-roll bars. But although the steering was less vague and the handling had improved, the throttle response still lagged and left you feeling disconnected. Vauxhall also claimed the car was better for long journeys with front seat lumbar support. Reviewers didn't agree, at least some of them, with some claiming that the driver's seat was still too uncomfortable and the steering wheel and the armrest still made driving difficult. They remained underwhelmed and it failed to capture their interest. Yes, it was reliable, but where was the excitement? That didn't stop the Vectra selling well in the UK and on the continent though. After all, there were a lot of customers that weren't looking for excitement and pinpoint handling, just reliability and fuel efficiency. In 1997, Opel sold 140,000 Vectras. In the UK, it was the 4th best-selling car between 1996 and 1998. In 2001, Vauxhall introduced a new 2.2-litre engine, and the following year there was a petrol LPG hybrid version, as Vauxhall put it. But the company was gearing up for the next generation car with a next generation platform, the Epsilon, that would be shared with a laundry list of cars that included Buicks, Cadillacs, Chevrolets, a Pontiac, the large Vauxhall Signum, a Chinese Rowe, the brand that sold the Rover 75 in China, Saab, the Saturn L series replacement, the Aura, and would you believe a Fiat? This reuse was all in the future though. The focus of the new platform, the Mondeo of the new platform, was beating the Vectra's rivals, and that was even more important as those rivals had all been updated. There were production changes as well. The outgoing Vectra would be the last Vauxhall car produced in Luton. It was the end of an era after nearly 100 years of Vauxhall producing cars in that city. But Vauxhall van and SUV production would continue. As for the new Vectra, production would move to Ellesmere Port. The car was meant to appear in 2001, but delays meant it launched at the Geneva Motor Show in spring 2002 with adverts featuring Ed Harris. Worryingly, the new car tipped the scales another 85 kilos heavier than the old model. But that wasn't necessarily a problem in this case. Ford's new Mondeo was still a good handling car, despite now weighing almost the same amount. Maybe it wasn't all about the weight, it was about the handling. One reason the Vectra was heavier though was because it was bigger, 12 centimeters longer and 9 centimeters wider than the old Vectra, something you'd notice when trying to get out of the car in a car park. It used the CAN bus to shift data around the car for the increasing level of tech the car offered, including front and rear park assist and an onboard computer. And although there wasn't a CD trim level any longer, every car would get a CD player. The new Vectra got better quality materials that might not worry the likes of Mercedes, but Vauxhall hoped could best maybe Peugeot and Ford. Front seats could be electronically adjusted, and there were all the cubbies and cup holders a travelling salesman could desire, along with a steering wheel that finally adjusted for rake and reach. Everyone got the joy of air conditioning and dual zone climate control. The rear seats included a ski pass-through for all the times Brits needed to shuttle their skiing equipment to St Moritz, or more likely the occasional long thing they bought from B&Q. Vauxhall waxed lyrically about what they called their new interactive driving system. That encompassed all new suspension, along with electronic brake force distribution and electro-hydraulic power steering that replaced the much maligned hydraulic steering of the old model. The new Vectra also got more power from a wide range of petrol and diesel engines. With this new 2002 model, Vauxhall made the conscious decision to challenge convention and revisit the rules of good car design. New Vectra, new rules. Well, that's what their marketing material said. They could hardly have said what they should have said, which was, yes, we know the old car was a bit pants, but this one's much better, honest. Reviewers might not have agreed with all this marketing speak, but they started using words like finesse, which was unheard of with the old car. Maybe it was that interactive driving system. They declared the new car vastly better, but it still didn't have the measure of the Mondeo. Vauxhall rolled out hot versions. The SXi was billed as an affordable performance model and was fast with the 0 to 60 time around 8 seconds. The SRi was faster, but the 3.2 litre 24-valve V6 powered GSI was the fastest, with a 154 mph top speed and a 0 to 60 of 6 seconds. But it was front-wheel drive, and reviewers wanted rear-wheel drive, or even better, all-wheel drive. Like the previous car, the Estate arrived a year later, at least in Europe. Australian and New Zealand customers had to make do with the Astra Estate. Like the previous Vectra, it was the same car with more space, priced to sell in the cutthroat fleet car market. But that was no bad thing, and it would go on to win What Car's Estate of the Year in 2007. All Vectras got an update in 2005. The new performance version was the Vectra 2.8 litre VXR with similar performance to the GSI. Sadly, in Australia, sales of the regular Vectra weren't great, and there were enough stockpiled that the update never arrived there, and once the last car was sold in 2007, sales ended. The 2002 Vectra didn't sell as well as the previous car, but that wasn't because it was worse, it was a good deal better. Sales were dropping in the whole large saloon sector. With every new version, these cars were increasing in size, so some customers were simply buying the next model down. But many were switching to SUVs, MPVs, any car in fact with a 3-letter acronym. The age of the executive saloon was ending, and it started with the 2002 Vectra. By 2007, the Vectra had dropped to the 10th best-selling car in the UK. That year, Vauxhall announced the Vectra name would be discontinued. The next car would be called the Insignia. The Vectra name would live on though outside Europe. Like Vauxhall held on to the Cavalier name, Chilean customers liked the Vectra name, so the new Insignia there would be known as the Chevrolet Vectra. It apparently wasn't that popular though, and would be rebranded as the Opel Insignia in 2013.
Don't misunderstand me, there's nothing wrong with the Vectra. It's quieter than the Cavalier and it fulfills the dictionary definition of a car very well. But small boys are not going to grow up yearning for the day when they can have one.
So, was Jeremy Clarkson wrong? Were you a kid when the Vectra was around and now lust for one of your own? According to the UK government data, there are 33,000 left on the road. I'm guessing not too many of them are the 90s model that Clarkson didn't review. The late 1980s Opel Vectra was a great success, but once the Ford Mondeo appeared, the Vectra was always playing second fiddle. Maybe that's why Vauxhall and Opel changed the name in 2009. The Insignia didn't fare any better though, and production ended in 2022. but that was surely more because the whole large executive saloon market had dried up. The Vectra might not be remembered with much love by some, but it was safe, reliable, economical transport for many, many people, getting them home for dinner day in, day out without fail, and that's a great legacy to have. If you want to see the history of the Cavalier, there's a video on the right, and I've also done a history of the whole Vauxhall brand right from the 1850s. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.